everything starting over. So I hope you all had a really nice Yom Tov and Rosh Hashanah. And before we do a little mezuzah, I feel like it's just appropriate, like, because next week we're not going to have class, and next week is Yom Kippur. We could just, like, spend 2 minutes a little bit on the holidays from, like, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and what is this, like, limbo time that we're in. So it's very interesting. It says that on Rosh Hashanah, the book, your judgment is written for the whole year. And then on Yom Kippur, it is sealed. And that's it. Like, that's your thing for the rest of the year. Like, that is your decree for the rest of the year. So it's a very scary concept. You can come in. It's a very scary concept. Like, what is this? Like, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And, like, really the idea of Rosh Hashanah, the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah is that we want to make God king over us. And then Yom Kippur is the time when we can be like, oh, my God, please let me live another year. And we could talk about all the bad things that we did. But Rosh Hashanah is really focused on making God king over me. So now during these 10 days, we want to, like, this is like our trial period. Like, God is being like, oh, yeah, Faigy, yeah, you told me, like, you're making me king over you. Prove it to me. So, like, if you want to be, like, on your best behavior these next 10 days, like, this is it. This is the time. Because now God is like, oh, I wrote it, but I wrote it in pencil. And, like, if I'm going to change it for you, I could just, like, erase it and, like, add in or, like, edit. On Yom Kippur, it's sealed. That's it for the year. I mean, obviously, with prayer and, like, repentance and everything, we can still change our ways. I love to give this example. It's like a book. You know, choose your own ending book. The book is written. You just get to choose your own ending. So on Yom Kippur, it's sealed. That's it. And you still can choose your own ending. But now, these 10 days, this limbo time, from this week until next Wednesday, is when we can really prove it. So, like, normally, I have a very hard time praying. I'm going to make it my business to, like, really pray these 10 days. Or, like, gossiping, I'm going to really, really curb it. Whatever it is, I'm going to be really, really careful these 10 days. So use these 10 days. These are like a gift to you to do it. Okay. So now, as we continue our series of doing the virtual tour around the Jewish house, okay, so last week we spoke about life and existence and how we really want to spend our life living, okay, and we really want to be experiencing as opposed to just existing, right? Remember that? Existing, living, right? Okay, if you weren't here, watch the video. Joanna will show you how to get on. Okay, so now we want to take a virtual tour of the house. So when me and Almach were first looking into houses, and we were looking at, I was just like going on every single website, like every single real estate website, and like looking at houses, and like they always have like you could take a 360 tour of the house, and you know, like the camera goes like, ooh, and like they make every room look so big, and then I would come to the house and be like, where's that whole huge room that I saw? So if you want to do a 360 tour of the house, the first thing, like I wanted to jump right into Shabbat because like I wanted to do food and cooking and bring challah and everything. But then I was like, really, the first thing to do is right when you walk into the house is the mezuzah on the door. Right when you walk into the house. So tonight we're going to address mezuzah. I have to apologize. The mezuzahs are $32. I thought I was giving them away, and then they're like, we have to sell them for cost price. So I have like 11 mezuzahs here, and we ordered another 20. So if you don't get them this week, you will have it by the time we come back for next class, okay? So I'm sorry about that. Little disclaimer. Sorry. Okay, so I'm thinking again, like Jewish home. This is the first time I did this series, and I'm like, I like to do things a little bit more exciting, but then I told you last week how I got really excited about the Jewish home. So then I'm like, oh, like mezuzah is just like so Jewy. It's like so simple. It's like, it's the scroll, and what else is there? But then I was like, there has to be something cool about mezuzah. So I was like Googling it today, and I don't know for those of you, do you know Mayim Bialik? Yeah. You know Blossom, right? So she is, and now she's in Big Bang Theory, and she's like up for an Emmy next week. She's up for Best Supporting Actress. I don't know if you watch Big Bang Theory. It's like the funniest thing in the world. So she actually, Mayim Bialik, it's very interesting. She's on her way to like becoming religious. I don't know if anybody like follows her, but like if you notice, she's like really modest lately. Like she dresses like really modestly. And she actually like studies with this like Torah partner, and she like learned all about the mikvah and all about kosher and about the laws of modesty. And she was recently in a car accident, and she was like, she like blogs a lot, and she was saying it was so easy for her to cover up her accident because like her arm with the splint and everything, because she always wears modest clothing, so she always covers it up. So her big problem is like the Emmys is the week of Yom Kippur, and she doesn't know what to do, and you know she's stressing out. But her whole like design team knows that like she dresses very modestly. So they were like okay with like, they know, like get her a long dress, cover her elbows, cover her thing. And she says that for every event, she likes to wear like some Jewish bling. So like usually she does like a Jewish star or like a hamsa. And this year, to the Emmys, she is wearing a mezuzah necklace. So I was like, oh, there you go. I got it. Mezuzah is cool. I was like, well, we'll actually talk about mezuzah bling and everything because that's not really the idea behind it, but I just thought it was cool. So when you're watching the Emmys and when you see her after, look out for her mezuzah. Okay, so mezuzah is like this. So right when you walk into the house, you enter the house. It's on there on the right-hand side of the door in a beautiful case, and inside is this parchment paper. And there's some words of the Torah, and we hang it up there. So now the obvious question is, like, what's up with the mezuzah? Like, I don't hang a matzah on my front door. Like, I definitely don't hang a shofar on my front door. So, like, what is the significance behind the mezuzah that makes me want to hang it on my door? Like, what is that Jewish bling right outside my door? So the Talmud says that a mezuzah, a home that has a mezuzah is a beautiful home. But, like, not a Martha Stewart beautiful home, because she does have beautiful homes. And she actually has some really good recipes, which I did use for Rosh Hashanah. I'll show you some pictures. Stay tuned. I'll post a picture of I did, like, a cream cheese carrot cake for Rosh Hashanah with, like, glazed carrots on it. I'll put a picture up. But not like a Martha Stewart type of beautiful home. But what does the Talmud mean when it has a beautiful home? You know, whenever I'm in Israel and everyone's like, whenever we go on a trip, everyone's like, oh, I was in Ben Yehuda and I picked up this like beautiful mezuzah. And I'm like, oh, let me see it. And it's like all about the case on the outside. But the idea is not the outside that makes your home beautiful. It's the scroll inside, which we'll take apart in a minute. So what's the point of how is this mezuzah beautifying my home? So Elimelech had a friend who did a lot of business with Chinese people, and in China he was like, he was making a lot of money with like whatever he was doing with like some people in China. And they would come to his house, and he actually had a lot of security in his house, but like his security camera was like higher up on the roof. And he was watching footage when these two Chinese people came, and they rang the doorbell. And this is so funny. They rang the doorbell, and they're like, who is it? And whatever. He's like, Chim Sim, whatever his name is. And then he's watching on the video camera, and he's like, oh, hello, it's me, hello. And he's like knocking the mezuzah, and he's looking at it. He's like, ooh, look at this camera. And he's like, this is a beautiful surveillance piece. Like, he was convinced that the mezuzah was a security camera. And he was just sitting there laughing, letting this go on. And then he was thinking, like, it actually is a really good business idea to put a security camera behind there so nobody really knows. But the mezuzah does have a surveillance kind of aspect to it. It does protect your home. And there's this amazing story with a great Hasidic rabbi who's actually Elimelech's like great-great-great-grandfather, that back in Europe when his dad wanted to wake him up, he would go into his room and he would cover the mezuzah and he would jolt and he would wake up because he felt that God's presence wasn't completely there when his hand was covered. And like they did this then when he was a child, they did it a bunch of times. And as he got older, like obviously they were just like playing tricks on him, but it was the idea where he was at such a high spiritual level where he felt that the presence of God was somewhat hidden when he covered the mezuzah. So like if we can get to that level, that's amazing. Okay, so the idea of mezuzah stems from, right, every mitzvah has its source back in the Torah. So let's try to source this back. Where does mezuzah come from? Where does the idea, by the way, the Hebrew word for mezuzah, we think is the scroll, but really mezuzah means a doorpost. So way back when, okay, in Egypt, okay, the first time that the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, right, when the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, the first time God spoke to them with the 10 plagues and everything was going on, right, the last of the 10 plagues was the death of the firstborn son, right? So what happened leading up to the death of the firstborn son? Obviously, like, Pharaoh was warned and like, oh, let my people go. And he's like, no, I won't let them go. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to kill your firstborn. And he's like, oh, bring it on. So he, obviously, like Pharaoh and nobody else is scared. And what God had told him to do was take a baby lamb, which, by the way, a lamb was the Egyptians' god. Okay, they worshipped the lamb, right? In like India, they worship cows, and that's why they're walking all across the street. But in Egypt, they worship lambs. And God said, bring it into your house, okay, which, by the way, was a very low. Like, that was like, come on, I'm taking your God and I'm bringing it into my house and I'm tying him to my bedpost for 4 days. Like, so much for a God. That's actually what it was supposed to do, was like psychologically. And we took the lamb, and then on the night of Pesach, that first night, the 14th of the month of Nisan, we were told to slaughter the sheep, okay, slaughter that, and then take the blood of that sheep and paint it on your doorposts, right? Up, top, down. And then I will now God says, I will know that you have a Jewish home, and I will pass over, that's where the name comes from, pass over your home and not strike your firstborn son. So that's the source of the mitzvah of a concept of a mezuzah. That was the first time a doorpost was mentioned. Paint blood on your doorpost so I know that that is a Jewish home. So that was mezuzah. That's where it comes from. And that from that day forward, the doorposts of your door identify you as a Jewish home. And you know that a home is Jewish. You walk past. I'm saying, Anach and I were having this every time we went to go look at a house out on Long Island, and we're like, oh, this is mezuzah. Oh, it's a Jewish home, right? Religious, not religious. You go out, like Anach was saying when he was in Poland, like they were going around and like to neighborhoods, and like the saddest part was that they saw that there used to be a mezuzah there, and like there was that mark that a mezuzah was there, so they knew it was a Jewish home. So the mezuzah is like so synonymous with it being a Jewish home. And just a funny side story. This rabbi and a priest were talking, and the priest was complaining to the rabbi, and he's like, in my neighborhood, like, everyone's, like, being robbed, like, there's so many thieves, but, like, they're not robbing the Jewish homes. They're only robbing our homes. What's going on here? So the rabbi says, well, because they have extra surveillance. They have a mezuzah up at their door. So he's like, here, take one of these, try it. So he put it up on all their doors, and then, like, 2 weeks later, he comes running back. He's like, take these mezuzahs away from me. And he's like, what do you want? He's like, now I have people collecting money, and I have fundraisers coming to my door. And, I mean, like, I've experienced it. Like, my parents have experienced it. Like, people coming all hours of the night to come to collect because they know that a Jewish home, like, they would open up their hand. They would come to give money. So the idea is that the mezuzah sits on your doorpost as a security camera. Yes, that's one thing, a security device. But also, it sits on your doorpost as a constant reminder of what? Of God's presence in this world. So now there are a few mitzvos that we do. The mitzvos can be broken down. I may have told you this before. There are some mitzvos that we do just because we want moral society. So, for example, set up judges. Don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat, don't commit adultery, all those things. That's just a moral society. Then there's a second group of mitzvos that we do as testimonials to God. Mezuzah, tefillin, right? Men put tefillin on their head and they wrap it around their arm. Tzitzis, we hang because we're constantly reminded that there's a God in this world. Yarmulke, kippah, right? All those things. And then the last one is mitzvos that we do even though we don't understand, and like kosher and mikvah fall under that category, even though we don't understand because we believe in this God, and I'll do things for people I love, even though I don't necessarily understand it. So when we get to kosher, that's going to be that category. But this is a category of mitzvos that I do to a constant reminder that there's a God in this world. Okay, so mezuzah, oh my gosh, I get bageled. Do you know this term? You get bageled? Like people like want to let you know that they're Jewish, so they're like, oh, like I have this coworker at work, and like I'm one of 4 white people at my school. So, like, when somebody else comes up to me, she's like, so, you started cooking for Rosh Hashanah? And I'm like, what? I did not know you were Jewish. But that's the term, that's getting bageled. So I got bageled on the LIR the other time. The guy's like, oh, you have a car mezuzah? And I was like, car mezuzah? I don't need a mezuzah on my car. But clearly he was very proud that he was Jewish, and he wanted to tell me about his car mezuzah. So, Kabbalah actually brings down mezuzah, can be broken down. Mezuzot is what the Torah tells us to put it on your mezuzot beisacha. Mezuzah breaks down to zuz, maves. Maves is death, and zuz means to move. You move away death when you bring a mezuzah into your life. And so is it like a bodyguard? We'll actually get to that answer at the end, what zuz, maves means, but to keep away death. So before we get to the answer, I want to break down mezuzah. Okay, so I actually have some here. And I opened up one. I'll sell you this one for $30 because I opened it. No, because I want to show. If you don't want this one, it's okay. I mean, it's totally fine. But I wanted to just be able to pass it around to show everybody. Okay, so like this. We break down mezuzah. Mezuzah is made up like this. So you want to buy a mezuzah, right? Everyone's telling me I want to buy a mezuzah. Where do I get the cover? No. The actual important part is this. Has anybody opened up a mezuzah and seen it? Yeah? Okay, it's really cool. So it goes like this. It's a scroll rolled up over here. Okay? And it actually has in it the 2 most important paragraphs of the Shema. Okay, the first one, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, V'yahavta Eis, that one. And then the second paragraph of V'haya im Shemoah Tishma'u, that whole thing. So now these are the 2 most important paragraphs. And I'm going to pass it around, and I want you to tell me what you notice is different amongst it. You'll also notice that it's made out of animal skin. I'm sorry if we have any vegetarians here. It's made out of, in Hebrew, it's like Yiddish, it's called klaf, which is animal skin, finely. It's basically, it's leather. You'll feel it. It feels cool. And then the letters, the makeup is exactly how it looks in the Torah. Now, the whole idea is that this needs to be perfect. It's not the casing outside. It's this needs to be perfect. To the point where you have to check your mezuzahs twice every 7 years, because if there's one letter that's rubbed out in here, it makes it not kosher. So when we came to our house, this is like really scary. We, the previous owners left their mezuzahs there, and we brought our own mezuzahs. We wanted to hang it up, but we brought our own and we took theirs. Amach wanted to check if they were kosher, and they actually hung it up. It was in here, and it was nailed right through the paper. It was like piercing. I was like, oh my gosh, the whole point of the mezuzah is totally ruined now. It was like so sad. Every single door that they had one on was nailed right through. So that's why we do double-sided sticky tape, okay? So you don't have to worry about the nail and anything you can get at the hardware store. These come pre-packaged with the tape on it. But I'm going to pass it around. I want you to tell me if you notice anything interesting on here. Go for it. So as it's going around, you can feel it. I'll just explain to you what the two most important paragraphs are of the mezuzah and why they're in here. So these two portions, okay, the content of these two portions, it says uchsavtam al mezuzos beisacha uvisharecha, right? You remember it when you say the Shema, right? Al mezuzos beisacha uvisharecha. By the way, this is where the written Torah and the oral Torah are so important. Because if I would just read in the written Torah, like my babysitter, my Jamaican babysitter, right? I told you about her last week. She comes into class a lot. You'll see, I'll bring her up. She was like, I read the Bible, right? I do the same thing. But if I only read the Bible, I would read, Uchzavtam al mezuzos beisacha uvisharecha. I should write God's name. It's okay, don't worry. I know it happened to me. It snaps back. I should write God's name on the doorpost of my door. So I will take a can of graffiti and I will write God all across my door, right? Because that's what it tells me in the Torah. But that's why the oral Torah is so important. The oral Torah is the Talmud, which fills up all those bookcases in the back. Most of those bookcases are the Talmud. The big ones over there behind, what was your name again? Alyssa, behind Alyssa, now I know your name. Behind Alyssa is the Talmud, and that tells you that no, I don't take a can of graffiti and spray it on my wall. I take a scroll made out of animal skin, and I have a specific, somebody who writes it. In Hebrew it's called a sofer, somebody who's been trained to write the letters of Hebrew, who knows to take a quill, dip it in ink, write those letters specifically. Right, you'll notice, do you see the crowns on top of each letter? It takes unbelievable work. I mean, imagine like a Torah, a real Torah scroll. This is just two things. That's why, by the way, never buy a mezuzah that costs less than $40. Like, there's no way someone could sell it to you for less. We're selling it to you for $32. But I promise you they're good and they've been checked. But like, before he moves into our house, like, Amach bought new mezuzahs. He spent $90 in mezuzah. I was like, Amach, come on. Like, I could have bought 3 pairs of shoes. And he's like, Faigy, like, just like we put a lot of money into our security system and we got a new alarm and we changed the code and everything, so too with our mezuzahs. And that's on every single door. I'm like, that's 90. How many doors do we have, right? I start counting. But this is the security system to your house. It's unbelievable. So this content in here runs through the major concepts of faith, right? If anybody knows any mitzvah, it's the Shema, right? Everybody knows the Shema. That's like our go-to saying. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I'm saying Hashem because I don't want to say God's name, but that is our motto. That is our mantra, right? First thing you say into this world when you bring a new child in, we say the Shema with the child. When somebody leaves this earth, they say the Shema. The Shema is our fundamentals in faith. So these two paragraphs talk about those fundamentals of faith, the creation of the world, the divine providence, the concept of prophecy. These are all things that we believe in that we can't prove. This is like when we say a testimonial to God, it's an edus. An aid in Hebrew is an ayin and a dalid. And as the thing is going around, did anybody notice that the letters were bigger? The ayin and the dalid in Hebrew is aid, is the Hebrew word for witness. That I stand witness. This is a testimony to God. Do you see the Shema, the ayin and the Shema, and the dalid and echad? So that's why when people say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, because we want to pronounce that dalid, that aid. Aid is a witness in Hebrew. So the concepts of unity of God. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What does it mean? Why do we say Hashem twice? Because we say that there's a God there's the God that is two is really one. The God that's down here and the God of good and evil and whatever it is, he's really all one. So this concept of unity is so, so important. So like it's not, that's where I was like, whenever I get into this idea of like, why am I doing this class and everything, it's not just like I'm walking into the door, I see this beautiful thing, I kiss it. It's a much deeper concept. Like, I understand the concept of the unity of God. Whoa. I can spend all day studying that, and all I'm doing is just like walking by and acknowledging it. And then the second paragraph talks about the reward and the punishment that we'll get if we do keep the Torah and if we don't keep the Torah. So it says you'll have good crops and you'll have a good, your field will like be overabundant and all these things. You'll have rain if you do all these things of God. And it also remembers the Exodus from Egypt. So these two portions run through almost all the fundamentals of Judaism in the Torah. Now, the problem is, like we said, like Xerox, people use that word, Xerox, copy, right? A copy of this is not going to work. Do people use that? Xerox, yeah? Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like so old if I say that. I don't know. It's just like nobody says that. Okay, so a copy of mezuzah is not good. Like we have people all the time showing us their mezuzahs. They want to check if it's kosher. And then I'm like looking, I'm like, it's a photocopy. Like, this is not, okay, photocopy sounds better. Like, this is not going to work. So the kosher mezuzah, like I said, has to be on genuine parchment. It has to be written by a sofer. It has to be checked every 7 years. Any mistake, missing letter could be a real problem. So on the, as it's going around, do you see it? As it's going around, you can turn it around. On the outside, sorry, I know it's like snapping on everybody. On the outside there are two things. There's one Kabbalistic name of God. Do you see that? You'll notice that it's going around. And then there's another name of God, which is Shin Dayin Dalid Yud, which spells Shaddai. And for short, we just put the Shin on over here. So there are several names to God. There's God's name is Elokim. There's Adonai, right? All these names. One of them is Shin Dalid Yud, which spells Shaddai, okay? Which I try not to say because it's God's name, but I'm going to say it to explain what it means. So Shaddai stands for Shin Dalid Yud, which means Shomrei Dalsos Yisrael. Shomer is a watch, like somebody who watches over. A shomer is to watch somebody. Dalsos comes from the Hebrew word of delet. Delet is a door. So watches over the doors of Yisrael, of Israel. So God watches over the doors of Israel. And that's the concept of the security camera. It is real. I'm watching over you. Bless you. Sorry. Okay. So that is on the outside, and then we represented it just with the shin, that every time I walk into this, I'm like, oh, God protects this house. Like, this is a Jewish home. So now there's a question that comes up in the Torah. Okay, this is a biblical question, where two great people are arguing, and they're saying, this is like, by the way, this is the whole Talmud, just like arguments in the Torah. One rabbi says this, another rabbi says that. So one guy says, wait, so like, let's say you have a home that looks like this, right? Filled with all these Jewish books. And all this Torah and the Bible and the Talmud and everything, the Mishnah, is it necessary for me to have a mezuzah? Like, God is clearly watching over my house. Like, I'm studying Torah all day. Do I need to have it? So the answer is that all of this will not negate your need for a mezuzah. You must have a mezuzah, even if you have a shul, even if you have a synagogue, even if you have all the Torah scrolls you want in your house, you still need to have a mezuzah. And the question is, why? Why do I need to have a mezuzah? So the answer is that it's really all about the location. And this is so, so important. If you take anything from this class, this is the idea. It is all about the location. You must hang the mezuzah on the doorpost of your door. Why? What does the doorpost represent? We are emphasizing this location. By the way, you're supposed to have one on every entrance door of your house, like one to the living room, one to the dining room, everything but the bathroom. So, but the main one, if you're going to have one, it's on the outside of your door. Why? It is all about location. Now, there are certain things, okay, by the way, in Hebrew, mezuzah comes from the Hebrew word of zuz, to move. So I go in, I go out, I zuz, right? The doorpost, that's why the doorpost is where I come in and when I come out. Zuz means to move, right? Zuz mavet, that death should move away. So the door represents movement in and out. And it's very, very hard for us to control all the elements out there in the world. There's so much going on there, right? But then there's the concept of what I bring into my home. I have some sense of control. A lot of things I don't have control about. I don't have control about what my kids see in the streets and what they learn and what they pick up from their neighbors and what they learn in their house. But in my house, I have a sense of control. Now, this is crazy, and I hope you don't think I'm like I send my kids to like some crazy school, but in my son's school, in the yeshiva that I send him to, they call me up today that they're sending out this internet declaration form, and you need to let the school know if you have internet in your home, and if you do, what kind of security protections you take, what kind of filtering system you have. And I was like, whoa. Okay, first of all, by the way, I just want to tell you they emailed it to me. So I'm like, well, I have to have internet connection. But it was at work. So I was like, okay, maybe I have internet at work. But they felt it was important for them to know which children were sitting at home with, able, like Yael, my daughter, could type in YouTube. And like she like watches, like she types in Barbie and Princess. And then like weird things pop up. And I'm like, she can't be watching this. Like, there's anything in the world on YouTube. Like, she's like, no, my friend has a video. Her mommy made a video of her. So she's typing in her friend's name so that she can see the video of her. But like, really? It's like a free world out there. And I was showing my coworkers, and they think I'm like a fanatic as it is. They're like, you do the Rosh Hashanah? Like, everybody just has off. Like, you do it? And I'm like, yeah, we do it. So this idea where like, they think I'm crazy, but then when I show them this, I thought they would be laughing at me, and they were telling me that my coworker was like, my 7-year-old niece, she came home from school on Friday, and she sat from Friday from 4 o'clock up until last night at 7 o'clock on the computer playing games, like shooting games, and like watching whatever she wanted, literally from Friday, because they had off, schools had off this weekend for Rosh Hashanah, the entire time on the internet. And she's like, I could actually understand that the school wants to know if you have internet in your house and what security measures you take to, like, what filtering systems you put onto your computer so your kid doesn't sit on there. So you don't like the phrase where, like, every mother has their thing. Like, my mother, like, when they get angry and they want to say something. So, like, my mother was to be like, whenever she gets angry, she's like, get into your room. 1, 2, 6, get into your room. I'm like, where'd 3, 4, 5 go? Like, she's like so angry at 1, 2, 6. And like, I find myself doing it to my kids, but like, that was her thing. My mother-in-law, I started noticing her thing is like, not in my house. Like this, not in my house. Like whatever you want, you could do it outside. Just do not bring that into my house. And I'm like, what does that mean, not into my house? Like I could do whatever I want outside the house, and as soon as I come in here, I have to put on like like a different mask. And then I started thinking about it, like, yes, like there is a concept, and this is the whole idea of the Jewish home, that there is a concept of not in my house. And I'll tell you right now, like when we do kosher, there are certain degrees of kosher, and one of them is that the milk has to be watched over. It's called Chalav Yisrael, which is like more kosher milk. Outside the home, I let my kids have that milk. Inside my home, I don't bring that. And that's like, whatever. They can have M&M, those yogurts, all those like awesome yogurts with like, they pretend that yogurts are healthy because they stick a whole thing of M&Ms on it. So like that, for example, that milk wasn't watched over by a Jew. It was watched over to make sure it wasn't pig's milk, but it wasn't watched over. We'll talk about that when we do kosher. But the idea where I let them have it outside the house, but in my house I won't bring it. So then I'm like, am I contradicting myself by doing that? And then I'm like, no, because there is a concept of what I bring into my home is a certain level. And that's where the idea of the Jewish home is like, you can do it your way. It's okay. I'm going to hang the mezuzah up in my house, and that means certain things can come into my house and certain things can't. So when my mother-in-law is yelling at everybody, she doesn't yell a lot, but when it's one thing, when not in my house, I won't let this in my house, I really start to understand her. So then I called Aymelch. I'm like, Aymelch, we need to get a filtering system now. So he like downloaded K9 today, and he's like, okay, now you can sign the paper. I was like, internet declaration form. It's like so bad. We actually don't have internet yet in our house, and we're just like using it from our neighbor, which is like, they didn't say anything about it yet because we're waiting for like Verizon to come down. But the idea where like the lesson extends beyond my house. It's like I have a realization of God now that I hang up this mezuzah, and you too, you all feel it as soon as you hang up that mezuzah, that there's a certain thing that I don't let things into my house. Like if you think about it just physically about your body, there's so many entrances like for things to come in. There's like your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth. Things can come in, and we have to guard everything. Not everything can come into my house. Not everything. I'm not going to let everything. Certain things, do it outside the home. It's okay. By the way, when we talk about the concepts of kosher, and like people are always so confused. Like, why does my mom say we have to eat kosher in the house, but like outside, it's okay? Like we can eat it. Like, right? Isn't that strange? No, it's not strange, because your home is what you're building, and if you want to do it slowly, that's okay. But you have to make clear lines of what comes into the home and what doesn't. So now the Rambam tells us that even though the mezuzah is outside your home and it protects your home, you need to be aware of it at all times. how am I going to be aware of it at all times, right? I just have to hang out at the JEC all day and just like stare at the mezuzahs. Because like at my school, I'm always like, every time I walk past the doorpost, I'm like trying to kiss something, and everyone's like looking at me like, who are you? I'm like, why are you like touching the walls? They're dirty. Like, don't touch them. But the idea is that what the Rambam was trying to say is that it needs to affect us at all times. And that's why when we're creating this Jewish home, right, when we're starting to live and not just exist, I'm hanging it up outside my door and I'm making a statement. Certain things can come into my home and certain things can't. And this is a Jewish home. This is it. So now just some of the halachos, some of the laws that we should review before you go home and hang up your mezuzah is like this. All doors are supposed to get it besides the bathroom. But if you want to start with your front door, okay? Then start with the bedroom and then start with other entrances, okay? So that's where you go. Now, it's an obligation that you hang up the mezuzah within 30 days of moving into your home. So you have 30 days, gather up some money, hang up your mezuzahs. You can do it. It's okay. It's not that big of an investment. I think of like more expensive things. And it's actually the renter's responsibility. Like if you're renting an apartment, it's not your landlord, because even if he's Jewish, he doesn't have to hang. It's the renter's responsibility to hang up their mezuzahs. And the mezuzah is supposed to go on the right side of your door. Okay, we'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about the blessing of what you're supposed to say when you hang up the mezuzah. But it should go on the right side. Now the question is, let's say you have a door that you walk in and out all the time. How do you know, let's say a hallway, how do you know which is the right? So what you should do is you should look where the hinges are, and wherever the door actually opens up to, that's where you should hang it. So when you walk into your house, the hinges are on the right, that's where you hang it, okay? So hang it on the right side, renter's responsibility, obligation within 30 days from when you move in. And now because of like aging and humidity and all these things that could happen, your obligation is to check it twice every 7 years. So we just had ours checked, and we bought new ones, and 2 of them were not kosher. 2 of them were not good. So we actually had to have them checked, and what they do is this sofer, the one who writes it, he checks them, and then they also give it to a child to look over. Like a young child who like studied Torah, knows the letters, because they're so focused on learning letters. Like I see this from my daughter, like the difference between the Dalet and the Resh is a teeny little thing on the line, but kids who are learning the Aleph Beis are so focused on it, so after a sofer checks it, he gives it to a young child to check, which is an amazing concept. Now, the famous question of why is my mezuzah tilted, right? Do you notice that they're all tilted, right? They're always leaning in. Yes? What would make it not kosher? Good question. So first of all, if it's not written on animal skin, and a lot of times you can get fake animal skin. When you get a cheap mezuzah, it's fake animal skin. So did you feel it? Is it going around still? Yeah, you felt it. So you feel the difference, okay? That would be number one. Number two is if any letter is not written perfectly, correctly, if there's missing a crown on top, it's so minute, it's so detailed. Like I wouldn't be able to check it. And if a letter is rubbed out slightly, and if it doesn't contain all the letters, I think that's it. And also, like, you definitely don't want the nail going right through it. Like, that's really bad, okay? So it's on the right side of the door when you enter your room, the blessing, humidity, and now we're up to the angle. Why is it slightly on the angle? So this is really unbelievable. We don't find this a lot in Torah, this idea of compromise, because we're try to be like pretty black and white when it comes to halacha, when it comes to law. When it comes to like kosher, like we're pretty exact on what's kosher and what's not kosher. But when it comes to mezuzah, the question is you should hang it on your doorposts. The rabbis say when it comes to a home, it is so important to understand the idea of compromising. Like when it comes to couples and when it comes to children. Yes?
Doesn't it matter which way you slant it?
So we slant it slightly inward, in towards the house. Yes, but that is a good question. Yeah, you'll notice it on the doors. You'll start to like notice mezuzahs everywhere. You know, like when you're in like middle of like, let's say like you want to buy a new bag, right? And all of a sudden you just like notice everyone's bags, or like boot season, like you're just like you hear everybody cooking, right? So now all you're going to be noticing is mezuzahs. Like I am like so in it right now. So the whole day I'm like looking around, looking for mezuzahs, like making sure I'm saying it right and like putting it the right way. Yeah, sorry.
I have like a few questions.
No questions are stupid.
My apartment has hinges on the left.
Really? I was going to make a joke that some rooms maybe have hinges on the left.
Yeah, so I hung it on the right because that's how I Googled it. It said put on the right of the door. Should I switch it?
No. Wait, is this the entrance to your house?
Yeah,
oh, okay, fine. So then no. Then it goes on the right. The question is, like, let's say like you have a living room or a den and you're not sure. Then the problem is, let's say you don't have hinges on it. But it's on a room that you're unsure about. Like, do I come in or not? Otherwise, most of the times it goes on the right. So, but that is a good question. Where do you live? Oh, really? And they do on the left side? Yours on the left? Oh, this is on the left? That's on the right. The hinge is on the right. That door's on the left? Oh, they see now I'm going to start. Oh. I just saw this. My kids are so confused. My kids are lefties. I don't know where they get it from. And they're so confused. They're like, which is my hand? Because like the Shema, you say with the right hand. They're like, which is my Shema hand? Like they're so confused. So I'm like, the hand that you don't write with. And then Asi's like, but I write with both hands. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. Maybe he's ambidextrous, but like they're clearly all lefties. It's like the weirdest thing. I don't know where they get it from. But this to me is like so confusing. I don't know which one looks like an L. Like, I have to like think. There has to be a better one.
What do you mean? That's no.
It just looks good. You know what? Because like when you're doing Hebrew, I think this is why my kids have a hard time. Because Hebrew goes this way and English goes this way. Yao writes full sentences backwards, like all backwards. Because you're doing Hebrew, it's so hard. Okay, sorry, we got so confused. Okay, so the angle is because we want to compromise, but we usually never compromise. But when it comes to building a home, that's where it's important to compromise. And I'll just end with a quick story. The great rabbi who wrote the Mishnah, his name was Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. He was a very, very wealthy man. And like kings and princes used to send him gifts all the time because he was very wise and like very wealthy, and he was always sending good stuff back. And this king one time sent him a very, very priceless jewel. And he was like kind of waiting to see what he was going to give him back. So he had this beautiful diamond, this beautiful jewel. He sends it to his home. And what he does, what he sends back, is he actually sends him a mezuzah, a scroll back. And the king is furious. He's like, what do you mean? I sent you this beautiful jewel, which is worth thousands of dollars, and you sent me this little paper that's worth maybe 10 cents, whatever it is, 10 rubles, whatever it was back then. So he's saying, it doesn't make sense. What are you sending me? So he writes back to him. He says, you sent me something that I need to watch over. I'm sending you something that watches over you. So the idea where it really does watch over you. And when we said mezuzah zaz maves, it moves away death, this actually ties in so amazing to what we were talking about last week, where this is as opposed to life, death as opposed to life. It moves away just existence, and it gives your home a much more meaningful purpose. It gives your home life. Does it mean that I'm going to live forever if I hang up a mezuzah? It does say Laman Yerbu Yimecha, that I will live longer, but it means I will live longer in the sense that my life will live longer as opposed to my existence. So next time when you walk past the mezuzah, what we try to do is we try to kiss it, we try to have that connection, but I'm saying that certain things can fly outside, but they don't happen in my house. Those things don't fly in my house. This is what my home means to me, and this is what I bring into my home. And it gives you that sense, of security, obviously, whatever it means, like the security camera or whatever, but that sense of security to your home where we can reach that level of knowing that the mezuzah means God is constantly watching over my home. Any questions? Yes?
If the mezuzah is to protect the home, why do you put a mezuzah in places that are left for business or not the home?
So the main concept is the home. It says, Al mezuzos beisacha. It says, Uvi sharecha. Right? In the Shema, it says, Al mezuzos beisacha. You should hang it up on your mezuzos, on your home, and on bisharecha, on the gates that you walk through. Basically, I lead my life a certain way by hanging up mezuzahs. I'm sort of setting the tone for myself when I hang up this mezuzah. And work actually would be a really nice place to hang it up. And it's also a good conversation starter. Like, oh, what is that? Like, someone once told me that they always put like fortune cookies on their desk, so like when people walk by or whatever. But like hanging a mezuzah up would be like, really good conversation starter. So, but it would be for work, not only for your home, but your work. It's anywhere I walk through. What I want, this is the way I want to lead my life, with God watching over me.
Not your car.
But not your car. The guy at the LAR has one.
It's supposed to be a permanent place, and you don't put it on a sukkah?
So people don't put it in, right. You're right. That is a good question. It should be someplace of permanence, yes. Because also, like, you're allowed to live in your house 30 days without it, and this is only 8 days. A sukkah is only 8 days. But that is a good question. I'll find out. I'm sure there are people who do it. Like, my parents put an air conditioner in their sukkah. They're like, out of control. I'm like, you are taking it to the next level. Yeah, because like the whole idea is that you're supposed to move into you're supposed to move out of like your comfort zone and make that your home. So like my dad's like, my brother, like Alimach, they sleep in the sukkah. Alimach, my brothers, and like actually the first year I was married, we lived in Israel. I slept in the sukkah also. It was like a slumber party. It was so much fun. It was because it was like off my like bedroom. It was like a little porch we had off, but it's fun. Yeah, sukkahs is fun. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
What about when you were leaving?
So you are, but somebody, actually is a good question. I was supposed to ask Melch in between classes. Someone told me that when you leave the house, you're supposed to leave it there. I don't know the answer. Is that what it is? Yeah, that you're supposed to leave it there. Yes.
When I moved in my old apartment, I had to convert like a wall up,
Uh-huh.
and the wall.
Which I learned about you were telling me about this whole thing on the whole trip. Like there's a fake wall company that puts up walls in your apartment.
Everyone only sees Israeli, actually.
Oh.
And so I couldn't, like, I didn't have the tools to take my Mezuzah off because they were going to take the wall down. So I had to tell the guy, like, when you come to take the wall down, like, I need you to take the Mezuzah off. And he went crazy. He's like,
Oh.
I can't take it down. And I was like, no, the wall's coming down. Like, the Mezuzah has to come down. And he, like, went nuts. And he was like, it can't come down. It's supposed to stay there.
Right. So did I tell you that? So I have to find out for sure, and that is my homework for next week. That I think you are supposed to leave it there. You can't take it down. Right. You're not supposed to take them down. Right. So they did. They sold the house with their non-kosher. So we took down their mezuzahs and we put up new ones. Actually, we took our mezuzahs because we were renting. Maybe when you own, it means something else. I will find out about that. That is a good question. Renting, you have to take it down?
I mean,
You don't want to leave it there.
charge a lot for leaving. Took mine down.
Oh, do they? They charge you if you leave things there? Oh, really? Oh. Oh, okay, fine. Oh, okay, but that is a good question. I will find out about that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Not the one in the bathroom because you don't want to be watching over you in the bathroom.
That is a good question. We actually don't want to put the words of the Torah near the bathroom, where like great rabbis would. This is like amazing. They see like great rabbis used to write like math books. Like the Rambam used to write, the Ramban actually, Nachmanides, he wrote like a whole math book, like over all the years when he was in the bathroom, because he would never want to waste his time, and he didn't want to study Torah because you're not allowed to read the words of Torah in there when you're doing that act. So he wrote like a whole like math book. Like he went Einstein, like really. So we don't want to put the words of the Torah inside the bathroom. But that is, I do want someone watching over me. I don't know. I at all times, I hope so. So I have like 11 mezuzahs here, or 10 mezuzahs. So if you want, they're $32, which actually is a good price because these are. They told Mel said full price $50 mezuzahs, and we ordered like another 20. So if anybody wants, and they have the double-sided sticky tape, and so let me know. But I think next week is Yom Kippur, so I wish you all an easy and a meaningful fast. And if anybody needs a place for Yom Kippur, the JEC is doing services, and it's really awesome. And Melch davens, and he does a really good job, and it's explanatory. And then I think the next week is Sukkot, right? So then we're not back till October 10th, right? Okay, fine. So that's a long time. So then we're going to do kosher, and so bring all your kosher questions. And I think I'll bring in some food. I think for kosher, we got to bring it out, and then we'll do like for Shabbos again also. But if you have questions, email me, Facebook me, anything. And if anybody wants, you can come up and get. If you don't have money, you could I'll write your name down, and you could drop off money at any time if you want. Okay? We trust you. Don't worry.